Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 210. Each week we meet here to answer the questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google+, on the Dumb SEO Questions page on Facebook, and also Dumb SEO QS on Twitter. With us tonight, we have Senior SEO Manager for Zendesk in the USA. Micah Fisher-Kirshner is also a regular on the public speaking circuit for SEO. He lives in the western side of the USA. And in about the middle of the USA, William Rock. William Rock is proud to call himself an SEO. He's also a Google top contributor in web search. And he lives in Kansas. You can find William at williamrock.com. And Tim Capper is CEO of onlineownership.com in the UK. Tim is also a Google top contributor on the Google My Business community. He's proud to call himself an SEO and conversion rate optimization specialist. Okay, so our first question tonight is titled Google Showing Me the Wrong Information. This is related to a personalized search. I'm not sure if it's really something we need to worry about, but anyway, this is Tony Tigarito McCreath. He is a leading SEO down in Adelaide in Australia, South Australia. Anyway, he said, years ago, I switched domains and set up 301 redirects, all seemed fine. But recently I noticed that Google is now serving me the old domain, but only when I'm logged in as me, as if I'm in another account or anonymous, I get the right domain. What's going on here, guys?
That's a tricky one, but when he says that he was logged in as him, that probably means that he had a history of searching for that version of the domain. So again, going back to personalization, right? Because when I do query search, right, it doesn't show for me. I get a whole bunch of other variations and results. But going back to what he, back in the day when he was still working on it, it's still cached in his personal search database, I would say. And that's why I would see that result coming up. I wouldn't see it strange because I've seen other things like that from myself of old domains that are 301 redirected, such as the ones with hyphens going to the actual non-hyphenated domains. Kind of freaked me out a little bit in the beginning, but then if you go in incognito mode, it doesn't show up.
Okay. I see one of our forum heroes, Suraj Gadagay. He, I have to reset and try again. He said also along the same lines that he said, can you search your search and browsing history that's saved to your Google account in my activity? Lucas Regala suggested, have you tried redirecting the domain in the Google Search Console? He said that John Mueller said that sometimes Google shows the old URL for user experience reasons. Got to thank people like Lucas Regala and Suraj Gadagay for the work that they do through the week. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, anyone with anything to add to this? All right, let's move on to the next. This one, it's titled "Negative Reviews on Yelp." And Mari Sa said, "Hi everyone. The wonderful Erin McKay is a friend of mine and invited me to the group. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for letting me. I have my first dumb SEO question for you. A client has mostly good reviews on Yelp, but his few bad reviews are showing up first. He believes the negative reviews are costing his business thousands of dollars each month. He contacted Yelp and they were not helpful. Does anyone have any idea what he can do about all of the negative reviews, despite them being older than some of the good ones showing up first?"
Yeah, so I I jumped in on this on Facebook. And yeah, so to kind of reiterate a little bit of what I talked about, Yelp has strong guidelines at times I should say has strict reasons to not remove stuff. Once it kind of goes past the algorithmic filter of what they trust to show as a review, it really is kind of hard to get an actual negative review removed. You know, I mean, I've been in situations where ones that just seem like, okay, this is outside the bounds, and they'll leave it. So really, the way around this is just you're going to have to keep getting more reviews. And the difficulty with that is such that people who have more reviews or kind of a consistent user of Yelp is more than likely to show up. Whereas if you're, you know, if most of your positive reviews happen to be one-time reviewers, they aren't likely to actually. They're less likely to stick, and that can be problematic just in general because hey, more people are more likely to post negative reviews than they are positive ones. So the question often I think of is it kind of comes down to what can you do to bend to just get more reviews? What is it that you can do in your business for that? More prominent use of the Yelp sign, more prominent use in your emails, your campaigns, and even if you're selling products in particular, you know, having kind of that Yelp logo and mention of that can be ways of which to help provide having more of those reviews. But given kind of Yelp's stringent guidelines about not being able to ask, yeah, it does make it difficult. And you know, it's just trying to determine what are the ways that you can really highlight the fact that you're on Yelp and hoping that they eventually will provide you that review. Those are kind of at least the ways you know I would start off with, without going down kind of the path of things that are much more gray or black hat. Because Yelp is also at the same time very particular for if you do some of that stuff to call you out if you do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to add just a little bit to that. Just like we would do in Google My Business or for Map, we want to respond to those type of reviews, even if they're bad or good. Yelp gives you the opportunity to respond to those people. You know, where I've seen a whole lot of damage going to a company is where somebody that has not worked with your company and posting a review up there, and it's trying to hurt or damage the company. But yeah, the hard part with Yelp especially is those the bad ones feed to the top. And like Mike said, there's not a lot you can do at this point with Yelp. You know, there's one of my clients actually ended up paying to advertise on Yelp, and that actually helped. Now, I'm not saying that that's the answer, but I think there's a fine line. We report it all the time. I'm sure you probably have reported those maybe fake ones or whatever, but at least go back and try to respond to it, even if it is fake. You know, try to do your best. Hey, by the way, this is a fake review, or this person, or even reach out to that person. See if you can actually fix the problem. If it was, you know, something customer service related or whatever it might be, then you can go back and work with that client to see if they'll even take it off. You know, maybe you worked out the problem and now they're happy again, and they'll go back and change the review to a positive as well. Just a few ideas. I added a link to the chat, Jim, not chat, but the actual interface that we work with. It's a step-by-step guide to responding to bad Yelp reviews from Search Engine Journal. So hopefully that'll help.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, William. That link will appear on dumbseoquestions.com. In fact, it's already there if you just added it. Excellent. Well, look, let's call that an answer. I should just tweet that first. And the next one is from our good friend Niraj Kumar. He'd like to know, it's titled Good Practice to Add Products into an e-commerce website. And Niraj would like to know whether one, upload the products on the same domain, or two, or upload the products on a different domain and fetch them from two category and product pages. Which is the best practice and why? And I think I should also add how. I don't really understand what Niraj means, but anyway, I'm sure you guys will know better than I.
Yeah, so you pretty much the best practice is going to be having the products on the same domain. There have been kind of past recommendations about having separate websites for kind of different products. This was kind of the CSN Wayfair type model, and you'll find that mostly it depends on kind of your efforts. I think today you'll find most of us say put it on the same domain. You'll collect all the kind of the value and authority, and all the work is towards that one brand, so you can kind of help everything lift up. It saves time, it saves money, because if you're going to put everything on a different domain, you basically have to build a brand for each and every one of them. That takes a lot of time, a lot of money. Because you can't get away with what you used to do is kind of single product companies and spend so little time on each and yet expect them to rank. You really have to actually pull all of that together. So yeah, put them on the same domain, unless you've got a ton of time, money, resources, all that stuff to be able to kind of build up multiple businesses, because that's essentially what you're going to have to do in today's world if you put them on separate domains.
Yeah, and I've actually heard, like, when I was working with a couple different e-commerce stores that had thousands and thousands of SKUs, you know, they had their shopping feeds. So I don't know if that's what he's thinking, having like a one domain that's maybe that shopping feed that's feeding all the other sites. Sometimes you have specific niche categories in a e-commerce store, so to say, that's different. But then again, that goes back to Mike, what you were saying. You know, techniques used to be, how can I use this to game the system? And sometimes, you know, image injections could change, and somebody else can get a hold of that feed. Bad story, but keeping on the same domain would be the way I would do it. You know, keep it in that same server set, subdomain it. Maybe it's, you know, productfeed.domain.com, but I wouldn't have it coming from another source. It almost kind of seems like an affiliate type technique, and Google may look a little bit differentiated on that one and may have a filter for that. But I have not worked in that space for a little while.
Okay. All right. I'd like to chip in on an e-commerce site, but unfortunately, I'm sorry, Niraj, I can't figure out what exactly you mean there. Anyway, let me tweet that and let's move on to the next. Just call your attention to the chat there on the Hangout, guys, if you wouldn't mind. This one from Kyle Hawk, it was posted on Facebook, a question regarding the canonical tag. Kyle said, hi there, simple question. I have pages that sometimes have a get parameter and sometimes don't. For example, a page could either be one of these, shows/190/index PHP, parameter E equals 201, or shows/190/index PHP. My question is regarding the canonical tag. If the page contains the get parameter, should I also make sure that the page has a canonical tag that refers to the same page without the get parameter, or does it not really matter? Also, a new question regarding Google Analytics. Is there a way I can consolidate the data between these two URLs? Right now, they are listed separately. Many thanks in advance for any and all advice and time. He later added an edit and said, I realize I've not provided enough information and I apologize. You can visit the site yourself at randomaneem.org to see how this functions. The site is a random aneem show generator. So that these pages are the landing pages based on what genres you put in. I hope this clarifies some confusion. Again, I thank our forum heroes, Alan Blueice and Steve Wederman, both top SEOs in the USA, for giving up their time and adding answers through the week, in this case on our Facebook page.
So, Micah, you actually suggested in that going into the admin of Google Analytics and ignoring the E parameter. Is that what you?
Yeah, this was before kind of the edit. So if he's just looking to strip out parameters, let's just say that the two pages has no difference, then you can actually go in and just say, hey, ignore the parameter E, and going forward, all that data will be collapsed into one. If, however, the content is different, then that's a totally kind of separate type of discussion. So, like in this case, if it's based on different different genres, then you're not going to want to canonicalize those together if the content is solely different. So, yeah.
And this almost looks like, I mean, he shows the example of the parameters, or not parameters, but the actual URL string. I've seen that many times in Joomla sites. For example, Joomla will actually kick that out, and then you have another one. And this question probably would be something I'm looking to do, Micah, and you could probably help me out with this one. But I think it's where both those pages are getting indexed and they're in Search Console. So they're showing that they're getting keywords to each one of those, and then even if it's canonicalized, it's still kind of, and I think it's maybe a Joomla issue.
Yeah, so that's where things get actually kind of interesting. So you can
we just no follow these, no index, no follow these parameters, because I've tried loads. I mean, literally, you can chuck any parameter onto any page there. From what I can see, I can't see that these are actually any, like as in an e-com where you would change parameters based upon price or color or quantity. This, I think, is just a self-generating. Could this not even be stopped in htaccess from, I mean, I don't see a reason for them, put it that way. I can't see why they're even needed. I mean,
I don't think he meant that they are needed. I think they're just coming up for him, right?
Right, yeah. So
yeah.
Could these not just be canonicalized internally?
Yeah,
htaccess.
And htaccess.
Well, it depends, because you have some pages in Joomla where it's linked that way, and so you have to find all those areas that may have a link going.
Couldn't we just no follow, no index these then?
Well, the problem is
type of page, right?
Yeah,
anything with a query on.
No, so the problem is, and this is sometimes with some CMSs, is that those are the links on certain pages, and there's no way, like, it's basically you're killing some of your internal linking if you no index, no follow.
Right. I see.
Yeah. So the ways that you can handle some of that is in Search Console, you can tell Google to ignore parameters that it's the same page, and so in theory that should help to add to the thing to say, hey, don't show those types of URLs, it's the same page. So if the URL parameter section could help drop them.
So when you go into web Search Console, you can see like the question mark E equals 201, and you can actually ask to actually ignore that link, but go to the 190/index.php, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you basically say, hey, we've seen this parameter, and you say, is this like basically, does it make the page different? AKA, is it just like a tracking difference? And you can just say, yeah, it's just tracking difference. And so Google will then say, oh, okay, that means ignore the differences and ignore the parameter.
Yeah, because the page will still load with those, the same exact thing. And that's where it gets kind of scary. You're like, okay, am I blocking the entire content or just the
it's just
cool. Now I can do that one. I'll try that one.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of Bing has its own as well, but I forget if it's just ignore or block off the top of my head. So, if you do care about the traffic for Bing for specific countries like the US, then check the same thing on Bing's Search Console.
Because I've even tried some of the plugins for canonical tagging in Joomla, and I have more problems than it's worth. So it's like, oh my goodness, what did you just do to my site? So being able to do that, like, it makes it a lot easier as a webmaster to then when you're looking at at the actual report of all the pages that indexed, then it doesn't look all kind of dirty.
Yeah, and if you're in a situation, if you're lucky, and it's just for category pages, what you can do essentially on something like that is you can actually aggregate that data together in Search Consoles with the property sets. That's only if it's, of course, is like category level, and you can kind of merge some of the stuff. So there's that too, so you can at least see the data aggregated in one.
Yeah, and you see that. Yeah, very good. And you also see the data coming from from widgets, or not widgets, but like modules, right? So you've got maybe a slider module or something like that that's actually thrown off. It goes to a link, but that link actually goes triggered from the inside that extension. And now you've got the parameter that is created for that link as well. So it's like 3 different links now. So crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered that, and we should move on to the next. I hope that's been useful for Kyle Hawk. A question from Arithmol TP asking a question. She's obviously a Moz fan. She said, "Hi, what is the possum algorithm update? Thanks in advance."
Okay, so possum's just a nickname. The reason they picked possum was because, well, I don't know what American possums look like, but apparently they pop up and pop down, and I don't know. So anyway, what this essentially is it has been a filter applied to businesses in the same category within the same location. So essentially it's a filter. Let's say, for example, you're searching a particular street or a particular area for lawyers. You will tend to get, you know, you get some buildings with like 10 lawyers in the same building. Essentially now, instead of showing all 10 down the results, you may only get a handful. So you may only get 3 or 4 showing. If you zoom in to the actual map, then it will display more. It will display the rest of them. So essentially this is a filter. The filter is based upon, you know, certain things, obviously, which we can only guess at the minute, but it would be the ones which were specifically on the same floor, they get filtered out, or specifically in adjoining suites, or you know, of a very new against an aged one. So someone that had been there for 5 years versus someone that has only just appeared over the last year. So you've got age. And also, of course, depending on the organic ranking. So if some guy is sitting position number 3 versus some lawyer who's organically positioned on page 2 or 3, that also tends to be sort of filtered in. So then you also got the other thing where you may pick a street and be searching for restaurants. Italian restaurants, and there may be 3 or 4 in the same street. Essentially, this is a filter now saying, look, you know, it's also to do with the searcher's location. So if you're searching, especially on mobile, if you're coming from, let's say, the north, it will show you the first ones nearer to your location rather than showing you a ton of Italian restaurants further down the street. So essentially it's a filter based upon, you know, 2 things in terms of actual location. I don't want to see every single Italian restaurant in this area. I just want the ones nearest to me. I don't want to see every single lawyer in the street. I just want, you know, kind of the more authoritative ones. Initially, before Joy Hawkins over in GMB initially coined this term possum, I've been referring to this in the forums for months before. So this was actually in existence for 3 or 4 months before it coincided with the algo when people started noticing, hey, I've got to zoom in. I initially just called it an authority filter. So essentially that's what it is. It's an authority filter based upon who's in a building in the same category, not necessarily. So if you had a chiropractor, a lawyer, and a plumber all in the same building, those will all stay visible in the building. It's a filter based upon categories within the same category. So it's think of it as an authority filter. If you're not appearing on that first initial search and you need to zoom in for your business page to actually then appear, you can zoom in or zoom out. If you need to zoom in for it to appear, then think of yourself as, I need to build up my brand's authority. You want to look at things like, have I got some local citations within the area? I may want to look at increasing some of those. Am I not showing in like the most influential directory in local? Do I actually have actually have any content on my site? How am I ranking organically? If I'm not even appearing on the first page for chiropractors in XYZ, I need to now start working on my site in that sense of building it up. I want to get myself somewhere on page 1. Have you got all your localized signals in place on the site? Have you got your address, your opening hours, your telephone number, your embedded map? Have I marked that all up with local business structured data? So think of it as an authority filter. If you're not appearing on the first result and you need to zoom in to appear, then you need to work on your business's authority, on how Google perceives it, and why they're not showing your first bat. You want to build yours up, work on your authority so that they're showing you first bat rather than on the zoom in.
Fantastic, Tim. Fantastic. If William has nothing to add, I'll move on to the next.
I do have a question on that, Tim. So basically, I've got somebody in the forums. I put a link to the right-hand side in the chat. But say, for example, and I think you clarified that perfectly with, if I was in the same niche, in the same building, and I've got somebody in the forums that is actually, I guess, affected by that, and I was trying to figure out, well, how is this possible? Say, for example, the physical therapy company used to be there and has recently moved, but the map listing is still there, and the other physical therapist that's renting the building is actually not being shown for that when you just do the address search, not by brand name or anything like that. But when you just do that address search, they have the old company that keeps showing up, even though it's marked as moved.
Well, if it's marked as moved, it wouldn't be showing up. Marked as moved. If you can't mark something as moved, right? Well, you can, but that just goes into a queue forever and a day, right? You must understand, 500-600 million businesses and maps. That gets chucked into a queue. Essentially, you want to find where the original business has moved to, where it's gone, and you want to hit up business support, because business support can actually mark something as moved. Nobody can do it apart from support. It's in their back end. You provide them with the old location maps URL and provide them with a new one, obviously where the place is, and they will physically mark it as moved. What happens when you mark it as moved? Think of it as like a 301 redirect. Essentially, if somebody ever searched for that or that location, it essentially just kind of 301 redirects to the new one, the new location. So that is what you want to do. Yeah, don't want to mess about just in the suggest and edit mark as moved. It might take a year before someone even gets to that edit.
Cool, guys. Thank you very much. And I have Arithmol TP likes it just as much as I did. All right, so let's go to the next, if it's going to come up. Malakajuna S, who's asked a number of questions of us, asked another tonight, and this one is titled "Index Pages Are Removed Automatically." Malika Juna S said, hi community. In a few weeks, 3 weeks back, when I checked my website index pages in Google with the site operator, at that time it showed my important pages in Google, but now it is not showing the page. Even when I submitted more than 5 times in the Google Search Console using Fetch's Google. But still it's not indexing in Google. What is the reason for this, and can anyone explain it to me? Thanks.
Okay, so firstly, your site query search won't always show that page. I would rather just certainly make sure the individual page is cached. If the individual page is not cached and indexed, then your first place to look would be your sort of your robots.txt file, or have you inadvertently added a no index no follow or no index follow on into the meta tags. The second thing is you said you used fetch and render. Well, before submitting, did you actually check the page? Because at the bottom of the page, when you look at the actual rendered page, it shows you what Googlebot sees, and it shows you what it's managed to crawl. And it will also tell you there that at the bottom, whether or not it could actually crawl it at the bottom of the image. So that, seeing as you've already done those, and you said you've done them, I would log in now and go and double check them, because that will also tell you whether Googlebot can actually crawl it or index it. So you probably didn't realize, you probably just fetched and rendered and submit to index, but double check that, click on the actual URL when you've done the fetch, and then go and see it. Scroll down to the bottom and go and see that. That will identify your issue. And then if it's being indexed, check the actual cache on the page. If it was cached and indexed, you're fine, you're good to go. The problem is site query, I don't know how big your site is, but some site that's got, 1 million pages, Google's not going to show you 1 million pages in the site query search. It will show you, I don't know, 500 or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's not always going to show you. So relying on a site query isn't going to always give you all the pages to your site. There's just no way, Jose. The other thing is you can also check your search console, check if that page, so you've already checked those, but is it in your sitemap? You can actually go and see what pages in your sitemap. So there's tons of ways to go and see, but surely do not rely on your query to think that this one is appearing in search. So yeah, go and check that. If everything's fine, it's followable. When you've looked at the fetch page there, if everything says, if the report says it's fine, you've checked the cache on the page and it's cached and indexed, then you're good to go, mate. Just don't rely on obviously a site query to say whether it's indexed or not.
Excellent. All right, let's move to the next, if I can find the right button to click. Okay. This one is from Chase Rayner. Chase asks, or says, AMP is now on non-news pages. He said, so apparently AMP is now on non-news pages. Actually, it's probably more accurate to say non-news pages are on AMP. Anyway, also Jenny Halaz said, and I thank Jenny for answering through the week. She said she agreed with Alan, although one of my friends did a very informal survey of non-SEOs, and not a single one of them knew what it meant. Something went wrong with our loading of this question, because Alan Blue Ice also left an answer, but it doesn't appear here. All right. Any comments on this one? I think the answer from Jenny answered it, and it looks like you guys concur.
Well, the thing is, so you know, are you bothered? I mean, I'm not bothered that you know, you can amp up any pages. The point being is my site fast enough anyway in mobile and search? Am I delivering these pages? Will AMP do anything for me? It won't deliver anything for me. So, you know, I'm not going for it. When I hit 50 million pages index, yeah, I'll go with them. Also, if you start looking at some of the advanced, you know, some people are putting out some heavy duty research. People with like big sites. I mean, we're talking million page plus big sites. They actually haven't seen any material benefit yet. I've yet to see a report where someone has actually said, Jesus, you know, traffic skyrocketed, or, you know, I've yet to see one. So, you know, yes, it creates a better user experience, but I've yet to see actually someone showing tangible benefit to this yet. And I'm talking for massive sites. I'm not talking for, you know, smaller sites, because if your site is correctly developed, if you've optimized it correctly, you're on a dedicated server, you know, AMP is not going to provide it maybe a 0.1 millisecond extra, but in terms of that, you know, so but I haven't seen any like tangible benefits yet, or people reporting of an actual physical benefit where pre-AMP, now AMP, this was my traffic. Nobody's actually turned around yet and said, wow, blew my mind. So yeah, AMP, schmamp, we'll wait and see where it goes.
And just to add to that, you know, I haven't played a lot with the AMP yet. I'm still learning it. But at the same time, is when you actually pick up your phone, you know, it's mobile ready, and like you mentioned, is your site optimized? And most of these sites are going that direction. We saw mobile getting way before, everybody was freaking out about it. But then, you know, it didn't kill everybody. It just demoted people that weren't there. But the carousel I find fascinating in news, because if I was a news provider and I'm not like the New York Times or some big company, I'm a little person. If I had AMP in there, maybe I can show up in that carousel at the top, you know, where it's going to slide to the left and slide to the right, and I will get into that feed, helping me with additional exposure to then getting to my website and getting me additional traffic. But yeah, reports of saying, hey, this just it blew my mind when I added it. I haven't.
Yeah. So what you got to also understand here is, let's say for example, you've got an e-commerce site here. Okay, and let's say your desktop is quite heavyweight. You know, you've got description, you've got a couple of images, zoom in, zoom out, blah 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 blah. In theory, that even if you've got it unresponsive, right? In theory, that because it's heavyweight, let's say, and you all know the ones I'm talking about, like even for example Amazon and stuff like this. You've got all these product reviews and text and all this sort of bollocks, right? Essentially, you shouldn't actually, you know, if you're a massive site. Now, just remember, this is scale here, guys. We're not talking a site with like, you know, 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 pages. You know, we're talking at scale here. Essentially, you should have actually redeveloped a standalone mobile to counter your content. Your mobile should have been streamlined back. And I'm talking 10 years ago, this is best practice. I'm not talking like today. I'm talking 10 years ago was best practice. You should have streamlined that down for user behavior, user search, etc. So essentially that's AMPed. Now, go to the flip side. So let's say you've never gone and created a streamlined mobile version. Let's say you just, it was just sort of responsive. Essentially, if you go and amp that, right, you've still got to scale it down. You're not like going to freaking amp the page that you've got there that is like massively heavyweight, 500,000 words on it, images, blah, 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 because that it's going to be pretty much freaking pointless. So
but
you've got to look at these things in context of what you're trying to achieve. No lawyer is going to go and amp his freaking size. It's got 10 pages. It's got a blog, maybe 100 on there. He produces one a month. He ranks organically very well. You're not going to then go and streamline and strip down this thing and create AMP pages for the site, are you? So you really need to put these things in context about what you're trying to achieve and how.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next. We're charging through these. We've got 12 to go. Chase Rayner asks a question. Oh dear. Why every website should invest in local links and citations. He said, okay, Jim, Tim, and Erin, remember our recent conversation about citations. Anyway, at first glance, local links and local citations might seem unnecessary for non-local websites. On a closer look, however, there are strong underlying benefits to gain those local votes of confidence that could prove invaluable for everyone. In today's Whiteboard Friday, sorry, I've lost my place here. Okay, here we go. We're going again. Rand explains why all sites. Oh, I get it. This is the blurb from Rand's Whiteboard Friday. Okay. Comments? It's quite a discussion.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the very original conversation that Chase mentioned, Chase originally said his original question, like pre this one that he's referring to, was, if I sell blue t-shirts, okay, I'm a t-shirt company. If I go and build local links, local citations, business citations, will it help me rank for blue t-shirts? The very simple answer is no, because you build citations based upon the name of the business. And if you're called Hot Frog T-shirts, right, and your address and your telephone number, you are not going to now start ranking for blue t-shirts. Okay, you will start ranking for your name, Hot Frog T-shirts in whatever road in whatever city. Okay, so that's the original conversation. Now, what you also need to understand, so yes, I think this whiteboard, Rand was saying, hey, even if you're a big multinational, building out some local citations is great. But I still understand is that 90% of any decent halfway respected directory, well, so the first thing is citation based upon a name, address, telephone number, and location, which is probably your head office, right? So you're going to be building them to that. And if you'd actually built the site correctly, you should be ranking in your area anyway, right? not going to help you if you're building citations in the sense that, I mean, I'm not saying don't build them. What I'm saying to you is building your citations in terms of, my headquarters is in Hot Frog, California. That is what your citation is going to be built as. Hot Frog, California, X, Y, and Z. Right. You can't go and build a citation, a directory in Chicago, because quite simply they'll say, no thanks, you've got to be in Chicago. You're in California. What are you doing? You know, oh, sorry, submission denied. So, you know, you've got to understand the situation here is, you know, you build citations based upon an address and a location, and you are already located in that area. And if you have built your site correctly and structured data markup, you should actually be ranking in your area for Hot Frog t-shirts. Okay. Where you can benefit, or where you can actually do something, and, you know, I've banged on about this forever with large sites, with international sites, is to start looking at how you can create a local presence. Now, I'm not talking about crappy service area pages, okay? What I'm talking about is start looking for opportunities where, am I a distributor in a particular, am I a distributor of a product? Do I have distribution hubs in different parts of the country? If I've got distribution hubs, can I put those onto a service area page for those distribution hubs, where I name them, I list them, I've got the addresses down, you know, what time goods are in, goods are out. Are you an e-commerce site? Do you offer, like, for example, in the UK? So effectively, on some of the e-commerce sites I worked on, we now build in area locations in terms of deliveries, click and collect, because our distribution hub, our main distribution center might be in the arse end of nowhere, but we ship everywhere in the UK, and everywhere has got specific click and collect sites. So those are created into areas. They're created into click and collects. Which stores can you select? So different deliveries, like TNT, they've got click and collects inside of Co-op. They've got click and collects inside of Co-op supermarkets. The Amazons or UPS, they use different click and collect areas, and we literally list them out. So essentially what we're creating is two things. We're creating something for a user who they can then say, right, well, I'm located here. If I opt for this delivery, or this delivery, this is where they deliver it. So actually I can get it even click and collect, even delivered closer to my home, right? Just down the road, because etc. So we've built out these entire localized pages purely based upon not our physical address, but actually upon local addresses within the area where, you know, which is click and collect. The other things that we do is, if you're a manufacturer and someone's stocking it, who stocks your product, where they stock your product in that particular area. So you're creating a massive wealth of not just some crappy little service area landing page. You're creating a massive wealth in terms of area. Now, of course, those are interlinked throughout the site. And purely based upon the wealth of content and the deliveries in that particular area, you actually start ranking for, if you were selling blue t-shirts, you actually start ranking for selling blue t-shirts or buy blue t-shirts in that area, because Google figures, right, I'm selling this, but bloody hell, this guy delivers, and look at that, you know, in a particular area, look at all the places, you know, it's a good bit of, you know, and right, you want to buy t-shirts, this guy can deliver it to you like now, because etc. So you've got to get back to what an actual business citation is, how it's actually possible to use it, and who flipping accepts it, right? If you went to free XYZ SEO boost your business ranking directory.com, yeah, you can actually use as your company name dodgy anchor text like buy blue t-shirts, and you can fiddle your address and all sorts, right? But if you're actually using anything that's half decent, you know, you have to have your name, your address, where your, you know, obviously your business is located, your main head office or whatever, etc. If you have individual stores, yeah, sure, list those on store pages. And of course, yes, you can build actual citations to those particular store locations because they physically exist. So getting back to the whole flip side of things here, you really need to look at what you can physically build. I mean, I really don't think if I went to Rand and said, hey, I'm located at this address in London, but hey, Rand, can I go and build one in New York? Like, go and pick a directory in New York. Rand's going to look, because I see you saying, I don't think Rand would agree with that. Do you really think Rand's going to say to me, yeah, go and build that one in New York? Because it's so relevant. You know, it's up to you, mate. Just...
What about
you know,
when we're looking at citations, would be another form of citations when, say, you know, Chamber of Commerce, you're active in your local Chamber of Commerce, and maybe a couple different ones local to your radius of your business, right? So you're working with the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, you might be listed on there, but then also when they're talking about you, about, you know, hey, such and such was speaking about how the process of blue t-shirts are made and how the importance of, I mean, I don't know, I'm drifting on that subject, but I think blue t-shirts, you can actually help with, you know, what does the chamber need? Do they need blue t-shirts, or are you the embroidery? Can you also do that for the chamber? I mean, does that help as a citation, or is that just kind of like trying to gain a link from as a citation?
well, it also depends on the generally most Chamber of Commerce's will list your business address, or your name, business address, where you're located. They normally give you a brief description, so same as the thing, but then they just use a direct URL. It depends. Some might anchor text your name. I don't know, but most of them is name, address, telephone number, opening hours, what you do, how long you've been in the chamber, blah, 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 a little bit about you, and then they just give your standard URL. Yeah, yeah, everything helps, but I think going back to the whole point here is I honestly believe that you have misinterpreted this article or this Whiteboard Friday. You know, and to really, well, okay, so put it this way. If your main national business is based in, I don't know, downtown Chicago, what benefit would it be to me to go and find a business directory in Florida from there, when, I mean, you know, in all honesty, there's literally 50 odd decent directories in this world, you know, in any one country. I know in the States you can probably go in a search and find like, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000. But really, you know, are there any half decent? Are there any quality? I mean, okay, here's one way for you to go and answer yourself, right? So next client that comes along is go and build out 1,000, right? And monitor them. Create a spreadsheet and monitor them on a monthly basis. And you'll find the top 50 out of the top 50 will probably be indexed within, say, a month. The other 450, right? You're looking at a year, you know, 6 months to a year to maybe even 2 years before that page is even, which gives you a slight indication of its value to you. If Google doesn't even visit the place and index your citation there, in a year, it just kind of gives you the sort of an insight into the value that Google adds to that. Do you you know, if Google didn't bother even visiting the site and find it for a year and index it, do you honestly think that they're going to create any kind of value to it in terms of any weight whatsoever? So there's like the top 50, and then there may be even some good localized ones based on the same genre in your actual area. So let's push that up to, I don't know, let's call it 100. But anything over and above that, just next time you start with a client, whack out the 500 or 1,000 citations in, you know, in the nearest list you can find, and monitor it. And then it will answer your question on the value of it.
Okay. Well, I reckon that covers it fairly well, Chase, and I hope you think so too. All right, let's move on to the next. And it is a question from Chase Rayner. Will Google trust a site with a phone number on it more than a site without one? Interesting.
Yes. So
Yeah,
look, there's certain differentiations here. If you just blog about Mickey Mouse pictures, right? It doesn't matter to Google. Okay. If you just talk about hotels and what a nice holiday and blah, 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 and blah, 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 it doesn't matter. If you're an e-commerce site, it certainly does matter. And in fact, legally, if you are taking any payments now, I'm pretty sure it's also legal, you know, legally in the States, because I know Visa and MasterCard and things like that have worldwide terms and conditions that pretty much states that if you're accepting their credit card, in your T's and C's of your site, you have to have contactable information. Obviously, if you're using PayPal, well, that's another story, but then that's PayPal. But I'm sure, I think even PayPal requires you to state your contact details. So yeah, okay, so even legally there, I'm pretty sure you have to have it. Now, if you look at Google's manual quality, their quality checklist, whatever they call it, that actual people use to, you know, manually check the quality of a website based upon Google's algo and search results. They've got a little section in there called your money or your life sites. So these are insurance, healthcare, doctors, pharmacists, anything to do with physical money, and literally, you know, whether it's or investment or so. And they're specifically in the manual checks, they specifically say, you know, are there contact details? Are they visible? Are they easy to find? You know, are they legit? It specifically says that in there. So if Google specifically has that as a checkpoint on these your money or your life kind of sites, you can be damn sure that they place a weight on that. Same again, e-commerce. It's probably a slightly lower weight than the money or your life sites. I mean, it's a legal requirement, so it has to be somewhere on your site, even if that's just on the T's and C's site or your return policy page. even if it's just there. It doesn't have to be front and center, top in the headline banner or down in a call to action site, but it certainly has to be there. And then getting back down to just a normal blog site or whatever, things like that. You know, I know the toy railway company making club. I don't think it's that actual crucial in that sense for those. So it all depends on what the site is, but yeah, Google certainly puts it on the checklist for manual checkers, which then obviously, you know, they check against Google's search results, which then their algorithms are adjusted by. So you can bet yourself they do. It plays an important part, but it has a variety, you know, a variety depending on what the site is, what it does.
Okay.
I just posted Jim, I put a couple of links in there. One is the Raiders Guide, and the other one was the blanking now. The actual Quality Raiders Handbook Guide. So basically, goes all the way through Money Your Life pages too. So
excellent. Okay, mate. Let's roll on to the next. I hope Chase is happy with that response. Okay. Here's one from Mari Sa on priority and secondary keywords. Mari says, hi everyone, I'm trying to identify priority and secondary keywords I need for a website. This is the first time I'm doing this in years. So how many keywords do you think should be in each category? The website will have about 8 landing pages and the rest will be blog posts. Is this something that's ever interested you, William?
well, you know, back in the day, that's what I would focus on, is the keywords, the categories, identifying where everything needs to be. You know, it goes back down to the theme and relevancy of those pages. If you're trying to actually go after certain keywords, Google's changed the way that queries actually react. And so if you have that quality landing page, think of it kind of like if you were to look at paid advertising, so Google AdWords. If we were to do Google AdWords on 8 of these landing pages, what would be the quality score if I was picking a particular keyword that I was bidding on? The other thing would be, you know, what the variation of that theme could be. So going back to the quality of that landing page, what's the experience the user is going to be traveled through? Or is it just a whole bunch of fluff, secondary keywords, long tail keywords? I'm not saying don't do the research on the keywords. I'm basically saying don't write for the search engine, write for the visitor. And it almost, you know, a lot of people get in a bad habit with writing for that search engine because they want to rank for all those keywords. And what'll be interesting for you is when you test these landing pages, you'll see in Google Search Console or Webmaster Tools the queries that are coming to those landing pages under the page results. So then you can start to identify some additional queries that may actually fit the user experience a little bit more that you might not have thought about. And then you can start to add a little, you know, maybe another paragraph of content that supports that. But don't think about stuffing it for keywords, because I think that's where we get kind of caught up. And that's where the Panda algorithm will step on you pretty hard. So.
Yep. I'm happy that that's the best answer we're going to get. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next. This one from Mike Cook. This is one that puzzles me. Anyway, Mike said, best tool to get a Twitter users, to get a list of Twitter users and handles. Mike said also, what is the best tool to get a Twitter user list and harvest all the Twitter handles and websites attached to that user? And he lets us know that this is part of a link building exercise. I haven't. You go ahead.
That's where I'm at. It's a difficult one because it sounds like you're harvesting it for a reason. You explained it in link building.
I mean, there are quite a lot of a lot of platforms will do that. What's that main one that you can manage all your social?
Hootsuite.
Yeah, their pro version allows you to do that. There's also other apps like Crowds. There are. Who's that? There's that other one, Crowd. Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not. So I don't use these kind of social thingamajigs. But I guess if you did just a normal search on top 50 social management platforms, it will give you a list of the top 50 and just check out their pro versions, and most of them, or a large percentage of them, will allow you to segment by power users or categories, genres, who tweets the most, who's the most followers, blah 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 blah. Most of the, and I think a lot of them are paid versions, but yeah, just do a search for that, and I'm sure you will find it.
Yeah, and I just did a quick Google search for harvesting Twitter data or Twitter profiles, and there's a lot of articles out there for data mining. That sounds like what you're trying to do is you're trying to data mine, put this into a spreadsheet, and then have that to go upon to then communicate to the website owners, and then again maybe break it down by category themes so that you know, okay, these are the plumbers and these are the attorneys and these are, and then maybe go after them individually with link building. But again, link building doesn't sound like a fun way to do it. It looks like it sounds almost, I don't want to say it, but it sounds a little spammy, but totally doable. So one of the articles I just found, how to harvest millions of Twitter profiles without violating the terms of services. So I'll put that in the links if it helps.
Yes, thank you, William. I'm going to appoint you link manager.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mike, I hope that's a response that will be useful to you, and let's move on to the next.
Jim, one other thing to put into that is also to think about the Penguin algorithm on this stuff. So if you are starting to do that link building kind of like that, kind of consider reading a little bit more about what the Penguin algorithm does. So.
Yep. Okay, Mike Cook asked another question titled Schema for Product with Volume. He said, does anyone know the schema that would be used for a product when you have a volume for it? For example, a 1 litre bottle.
Well, looks like Dave answered that.
Yeah, Dave said, I believe you use the weight schema data for this and then just use the unit code for litre. It's part of quantitative value. Great, let's call that an answer and move on. Thank you, Dave Elliott, too, by the way. I can't thank enough the usefulness of the efforts put in through the week on our communities, on our Facebook page, Dumb SEO Questions, and on the SEO Questions community on Google+. Here's a question from Arithmol TP, who asked that question earlier about Possum. And this one is on the image universal drop update. This it's a Moz proprietary thing, isn't it? Honestly, I don't know. Does anybody know?
No, I don't. It might be just one of the tools that are inside Rand's tools.
Yeah, it's
no idea.
Go ahead.
No idea. I'm not a Mozzie.
Yeah, neither am I. Okay, I'm sorry, Arithmol TP. That's the best we've got, which is not much, but we did our best. All right, Nagash Shukla asks a question on a 301 returning a 404. He said, one more question on gubbi.co.in. Some users complain that they cannot access the website. They get a 404 error on the website. He said, I have set up 301 redirects from non-dub-dub-dub to dub-dub-dub. This should not give 404 errors to users. He said, is it because of antivirus that the user has installed on this system? Could this be due to the 301 that I have set up? Yes, it could. He said, I tried disabling the redirect, and it was, again, working on the user system. I'm not sure what exactly has happened to it. I have attached the snapshot of two users. One is getting a 404 error, and the other user is not able to access the website at all. Probably the antivirus has stopped it. Any help would be appreciated.
Well, I'm currently running a scan just on the domain just to see if there's anything that might be fishy with his domain or the actual website itself. Possibly, a redirect would be a malware piece on the website sometimes. But the other one would be, I'd be curious to find out if he's gone into the Google Search Console to look at all the 404 errors, and if he's seen a spike or decrease, starting to look and identify those pages that he's getting. He says that sometimes it's 301 and they get, or not 301, but sometimes they get a 404 and sometimes they don't. That's again why I'm running a quick little scan to find if there's any possible malware or malicious redirects. So that's something I always check, just when something's like erroring out like that. But it looked like when I looked at the website, the actual 301 redirect from dub-dub-dub to, or sorry, non-dub-dub to dub-dub-dub working fine. And it looks like the scan just came back fine. So I would probably look back in Search Console and see how often, and if Google's actually finding the 404s as well, and then read the dialogue inside there to see what gets down. That might be of help.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, William. Tim, do you have any thoughts on this one? I'm just having a quick look at the site myself. I'm sorry, Nagesh Shukla. I should have done my homework, but it's just been a weird couple of weeks. I've been flat out, which is unusual for me. No, I can't see anything. Okay, all right. Look, Nagesh, if you want to send me an email, I'll be happy to try and make good for my lack of attention to your question, if you want to. Okay, let's move on from this one. We're 75% of the way through. A question from Andy Ross. Well, this is a big, wide question. Normally, if I see questions like this asked on the SEO questions community, I usually reject it and ask them to ask a more specific question. But maybe we can answer the second part. The second part of it. Andy Ross said, "What is the best SEO practice to follow? I like blogging and article submission, but I was wondering if any other is also important. And how important are social signals for SEO?"
Okay, so okay. Best SEO practices to follow. I like blogging and article submission. Well, blogging generally means on your own site, but I'm assuming when you say you're asking about this and it's connected to article submissions, I'm assuming you mean guest posts. Article submission, you know, mate, that is even in the webmaster guidelines, I believe. You want to steer well clear of that, especially since article submission sites, actually, I don't think there are any good ones out there.
No, there isn't.
No, so look, you want to steer well clear of those. And in terms of when you say blogging, I'm assuming you mean guest posting. It's the same old. If it's a high quality site and they have editorial guidelines in place, then you know that's fine, because Google looks at it and they look at it as a trusted source, and you know, link in, you know, they will pass on that equity. How do you know if something's generally high quality? The high quality of it is 9 times out of 10 that if you apply to be an author, they generally want to see quality. You know, they want to see examples of work previously published. They want to see in different things. They generally ask a minimum of 3 publications elsewhere. Things like this, you know, just picking something or doing a crawl on something like guest post or art, you know, free submission or stuff like that. The quality of that site isn't going to be, you know, particularly brilliant. It may be, you know, you might find the odd exception, but I would certainly be very wary of where you're going to publish something and with a link to your site. I would be very, very, very wary of it. I would also do a quick search for Google Webmaster Guidelines, particularly link building, and have a little look in there. So the next part is, how important is social signals for SEO? It's kind of a little flip-flop there, but in terms of the question is, will a page on the site that had 50 likes, 20 plus ones, and 100 tweets on it, will that rank any higher than one that didn't? Okay, so you kind of need to understand 2 separate things. So first off, my answer is no. Purely based on the social signals on that site, no. But you also need to look at, why did that page get 50 likes, 20 plus ones, 100 tweets, and maybe a couple of other shares in other obscure places? People have enjoyed it. They've liked what was on there. And even though there may, out of those likes, there might have been a couple of shares and, you know, things like this, that per se won't necessarily increase the ranking, but it will be a signal to Google that this is great, and Google's also going to find it here, there. And ordinarily, if people actually liked it and that many times and shared it, etc., etc., there's a fair chance someone might actually cite it in one of their articles on the site. So you've then gained not just social, but you've also gained an actual natural link where someone cited your article or mentioned your article. On a point blank, if I have likes and tweets and blah, blah, blah on a page, will that benefit me? No. Why those were created, and as an overall whole of people enjoying liking and visiting the page, generally getting more traffic, possibly sharing it socially or even citing it, that. So there's kind of two answers in that question, and you kind of need to understand what social signals are. So essentially, if you went and bought 20 tweets and blah, 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 that's not going to do anything for you. If they were genuine social, that page by genuine people, then you actually will stand a chance of benefiting from that engagement, because 9 times out of 10, if that many people have liked it, blah, 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 they've shared it, some people may, you know, cite it or link to it, things like this, then you will benefit from it.
Cool. Well, thank you, Tim. I'll still continue to exclude questions that are too broad from the. I've got to be respectful of the time for you guys, but that's a pretty good elevator statement. All right, let's move on to the next. We've got 5 to go. Well, actually, that's including news items. So I think we've broken the back of it. Niraj Kumar asks a question on a direct answer from a Facebook Notes. I don't even know what Facebook Notes are. Niraj said, "It is amazing, never seen before for me. A direct answer or whatever it is from Facebook Notes." He said, "This is growing evidence of social media importance. Do we need a blog or website now?" Of course we do. Life's not going to change. What do you guys think?
I haven't touched that or even heard about it. I was just kind of Google searching on the side here to learn a little bit more about it. I did find an article, brief article on the actual help center with inside Facebook, but didn't give me anything that was what it looked like or what it's for. But it almost, like, from what I was reading, it almost sounds like the answer box in Google when you're typing a query like, you know, what is something, or so I'm curious to learn more if that's kind of what's happening in Facebook when you're asking a question, or yeah, I don't know enough about it, Jim, to talk about it, but I'll definitely study it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that Facebook is an incredibly powerful marketing tool, but it depends on the circumstance. So we'll certainly need blogs or websites for at least some purposes. Yeah, no, that's about all I've got. And it looks like that's about all we have tonight for you, Niraj. Thank you for your interest. Edwin Yonk, Edwin Yonk posted, we've done it again. We've answered all of the questions asked on the SEO Questions community and also on Facebook. And now we move on to our SEO News Roundup. And Edwin Yonk posted this. It was a post of mine. He said it was an announcement that Google Plus is now a core app for work services. This is not really an SEO thing. Anybody want to comment on this, or we'll just move on? Okay, as I thought. Here we have another one from me. Penguin is now part of our core algorithm. And I object to Google calling this Penguin 4 because it inherits nothing from Penguin 1, 2, and 3. It's a new process and a new approach, which they're to be commended for, but it's nothing. It can't be called an update, because an update is an update of previous source code, and this, which now operates in real time, is something brand new. And Penguin 1, 2, and 3 have been consigned to the dustbin, and should have actually been buried at Mountain View. William Rock was sent forth with the task of burying Penguin for us. This was before Google made this announcement, of course. But Google made the announcement, and the funeral didn't take place. But I still maintain we should have had that funeral, because that penguin is dead. No other comments?
Jim, I think you're right, though. It is something different. It was called 4.0, I think, because the industry was calling for an answer from Google saying, we're going to have an update with this. When is it coming? It was kind of like strung out, and now it's talked about being a always running, changing algorithm. But I think there's like other things at play with it. Its purpose way back in its beginning was to simplify detecting spam, where it was so easy at one time. I remember 2001, where you could easily manipulate the search engine by just getting a couple high quality, high page ranked URLs linking to you with quality anchor text that you wanted to show up for. And it worked. But now we've seen through the past where, especially 2010, 2011, we started to see really the whole switch with Google and reducing even more. Once they figured out how to remove the non-quality links, we're seeing people fall off the search engines. And then at the same time, as with 3.0 to 4.0, we've had optimizers say I've been penalized, and it's still here. But if you look at all the links that they had penalized, most of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but most of them were toxic. So when I tease with the penguin drinking link juice, and he drank too much and got a little schnockered, it's because I think that people are just tossing their links into the disavow file, thinking that Google is going to just ignore those links, but they don't even go in. Now, again, I'm not saying everybody, but the majority of them haven't even tried to clean up the mess, right? So those links still exist out there today, and I think it's kind of like space junk. You put stuff into space and leave it. You got to still clean it up somehow. And I think that's what's happened with the web. There's too many people try to game the system. It worked, and now the penalty from 1, 2, and 3 have done its part and reduced everybody, or filtered everybody's down to a trickle on their traffic. And they were hoping to come back, but they only disavowed the files and not tried to attempt to go through and notate that disavow file to say, yes, I went through the process of contacting the webmaster, I went through this channel, this channel, this channel, and I didn't get a resolve, so I need to disavow this link. But at the same time is somebody built that link in the past. And I think in today's age, I think there's a smarter marketing mentality that basically says that they're not going to actually follow that same tactic that older optimizers did. But we still have those others that continue to play in the process. I was going to share my screen with you and share with for our lovely penguin. So if you can see my screen, that's our lovely penguin getting schnockered at Google. So.
Well, I mean, look at those bottles there, mate. He's not dead. He's dead drunk.
I know, but we were close. But you're right. The next version, I don't think it was supposed to be called a. You know, I don't think it was supposed to be 4.0, but I think it could have been, you know, another variation, because it's not an update. It was actually a core algorithm change.
Yes, that's it. All right. Okay. So when people said "Go home, penguin, you're drunk," that's what it meant. Oh, this was cute. For some reason or other, this was a post by Alistair Lattimore. Remember Alistair, guys? Alistair Lattimore made this post that Apple Maps were redirecting robots text to Google Maps robots text. Wonder what that was about. Yeah. Anyway, it was shared by Edwin Yonk, and I thought it was worth posting. No comments?
I didn't see anything about that. Yeah.
I wonder if it's still redirecting. Let me have a look. It is. If you go to https://maps.apple.com/robotstext and click it, it gets there with a 302 redirect. Wow. I suppose they figure that, what do they figure? Or maybe they think that Google Maps, do they use the same folders on Apple Maps? I don't know. Anyway, that's interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting that it's doing the same thing for me. So yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. All right. Let's tweet that. I think this is the last one. Oh, this is another one on Penguin and my whinge that it shouldn't be called Penguin 4 Update. There was a comment today on Facebook from Gary Illies, who works for Google as a web analyst, and he's trying to make out that there is no such thing as negative SEO. I mean, the absolute hypocrisy of those guys. Anyway.
Well, I think, Jim, what he was referring to in the Penguin and negative SEO is, and I think we've talked about this a couple times with one of the attacks that I had received, where they injected, you know, was it 50,000 pages of content and then actually created like 20 or 30,000 links to that content from RSS feeds and everything else. I was truly afraid of that was going to have a negative impact, even though it started to show, you know, I was showing it for Nike shoes and everything else. But I thought that was going to have a negative impact with me with Penguin, where it did not. My fingers are still crossed, knock on wood, that you know, it doesn't actually find it. But I think that Google has gotten that smart, they could figure out that this was an attack, or a possible attack. Now, it didn't affect ranking, so that was great. So I think with that in mind, they've solved part of the issue that we used to always have with negative SEO.
Yeah. Anyway, I gave Gary a bit of curry and left. He's a lovely fellow, but I don't think it's fair to be, particularly when people have lost infinitely large sums of money through the actions of a competitor. I think it's the height of hypocrisy for Google to start to pretend, after having shoved this under the carpet for so long. It's just wrong for anyone to pretend that it just didn't happen. It's just the height of hypocrisy. Anyway, no other comments? Okay, let me tweet that. And it's that time again. It's thank you for watching, and we appreciate your interest in what we do. Your interest makes what we do worthwhile. We'll be back at the same time next week to do this all again. But for now, it's good night.